build on it and see how we can create an opportunity for naming of committee rooms and wherever is necessary with names of colleagues, either serving or late. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the privilege.
Yes, I think that's in the midst of the contributions over the demise of this great Nigerian, a detribalized Nigerian in all respects. The last suggestion by the Senate President Emeritus is very appealing to me. And I hope my colleagues will see the need to, the Senate leader, to look backwards and dust the report for further consideration by this 10th Senate. Let's end the discussions with distinguished Senator Abaribe.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Sangi Abaribe, and I stand to also lay my voice. Very nice, and comport yourself from the way you do things. Instead of FCT then, because at that time he chaired a committee, and later he came back to me and said, you know, you could do your disagreement, but always have facts. I didn't have facts, but I just was shouting and trying to make trouble. And I think that also helped me to stay back, and at any time I needed to talk here, I will always be sure that I have my facts. He's such a nice man, and as our people will say, when the great people leave this mortal plane, the heavens themselves will recognize it. And I ask that good Lord will accept the soul of our very good and dear friend, Senator Abubakar Sangi. May his soul rest in peace.
So we will go into the prayers, but I want to start by thanking the distinguished Senator Wadada for bringing this to the fore of the Senate. Just to contribute my voice, that I knew Senator Sangi personally, not in the National Assembly, but in the political firmament. And it was a very, from the testimonies here, we must send our condolences to the family and pray to Almighty Allah that He finds repose in paradise. Those are people that we should immortalize. So I'm agreeing with you that God will console his family, and God will give them strength, and God will produce more Sudankis who believe in Nigeria, who believe in progress, and who believe in the peace of humanity. So we go into the prayers. Prayer 1. Observe a minute silence in honor of distinguished Senator Abubakar Sangi. Those to be specific, the Senate. I rise to second Nigeria and the National Assembly. Prayer as amended. Say aye. May the great soul of distinguished Senator Abubakar Danso Sangi rest in perfect peace. Yes, Senator Abubakar, Senator Yaradua.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm Abdulaziz Eradua, representing Katsina Central. I come under Order 42 personal explanation. With the permission of Mr. President, may I go ahead to read the order 42.
Proceed.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, I want to bring to the attention of this Senate that today is World Kidney Day. World Kidney Day. And in recognizing today as the World Kidney Day, it is imperative to note that we are faced with a critical healthcare challenge in Nigeria. Recent statistics from the Nigerian Association of Nephrology reveal that an alarming 25 million Nigerians are living with kidney disease. This calls for urgent attention to address the prevalence of this life-threatening condition and improve kidney treatment facilities in our country. Reports that chronic kidney disease constitutes about 40% of referrals to tertiary hospitals in Nigeria and is a significant contributor to daily hospital admissions. Finds that the cost of dialysis session in Nigeria ranges from 20,000 to 50,000 per session, leading to low adherence rate due to financial constraints. Further finds that the alternative to dialysis, which is kidney transplant, is financially unattainable for many, with the cost exceeding 6,500,000 naira. Aware that the National Health Insurance Scheme in Nigeria provides limited coverage for chronic kidney disease patients, highlighting the need for expanded insurance coverage to support this treatment. Notes that the federal government and other stakeholders must launch extensive public education campaigns to raise awareness about kidney disease prevention, risks, and available treatments. Notes that urgent steps needs to be taken to enhance kidney treatment facilities across the country. This includes increasing the number of functional dialysis centers in tertiary health facilities, ensuring access to dialysis treatments even in remote areas, and addressing the shortage of dialysis nurses and specialized technicians. It is imperative that we act swiftly to address the increasing burden of kidney disease in Nigeria by increasing awareness, improving treatment facilities, expanding insurance coverage, and supporting infection prevention measures. We can also enhance the quality of life for millions of Nigerians affected by chronic kidney disease. It is therefore important, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, to draw the attention of members of the Committee on Health to lobby for an expansion of the National Health Insurance Scheme to provide comprehensive coverage for chronic kidney disease patients, ensuring that financial constraints do not hinder access to essential treatment. It is equally important that the Federal Ministry of Health and other allied ministries should implement infection prevention training and supervision protocols to safeguard chronic kidney disease patients. The federal government and other stakeholders should launch extensive public education campaigns to raise awareness about kidney disease prevention, risks, and available treatments. The Federal Ministry of Education and other stakeholders should also include extensive public education campaigns to raise awareness about kidney disease prevention, risks, and available treatments in their school curricula. It is equally important for the federal government to create an intervention fund to increase the number of functional dialysis centers in tertiary health facilities, ensuring access to dialysis treatments even in remote areas, and addressing the shortage of dialysis nurses and specialized technicians. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you for the privilege.
You've come under personal explanation, right? Distinguished Senator Yaradua. So today is World Kidney Day. We have noted that the members of the Committee on Health must lobby for an expansion of the National Health Insurance Scheme to provide comprehensive coverage for chronic kidney disease patients, ensuring that financial constraints do not hinder access to essential treatment. Those in support of this say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Federal Ministry of Health and other allied ministries should implement infection prevention training and supervision protocols to safeguard chronic kidney diseases patients, including those with HIV and hepatitis who rely on dialysis treatment in Nigerian facilities. Those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The federal government and other stakeholders should launch extensive public education campaigns to raise awareness about kidney disease prevention, risk, and available treatments. Those in support of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 4, the Federal Ministry of Education and other stakeholders should include extensive public education campaigns to raise awareness about kidney disease prevention, and the federal government should create an intervention fund to increase the number of functional dialysis centers in tertiary health institutions, ensuring access to dialysis treatment even in remote areas, and addressing the shortage of dialysis nurses and specialist technicians. Those in support of this last prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Actually, distinguished Senator Yaradua, I must thank you on behalf of the Senate for bringing this awareness on the need to improve the kidney health of Nigerians, and the fact that today is World Kidney Day, and we extend our heartfelt sympathies to those who are already afflicted by these ailments across the Federation, and pray that the prayers you have brought forth will help in curtailing the incidences of kidney diseases, HIV, and other infectious diseases. And I must also say it's also a call, an early call to action, awakening to all of us that we should do all to keep our kidneys in a good condition. But above all, we call on Almighty God to help us because unless God watches over the house, the watchman watches in vain. And no matter what we do, it is God alone that can protect us and protect our kidneys and protect our families. Thank you for bringing this to the fore. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in my name on the 2024 Federal Capital Territory FCT Appropriation Bill 2024 SB 397. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, 2024 Federal Capital Territory FCT Appropriation Bill 2024, SB 397, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Capital Territory FCT Appropriation Bill 2024, SB 397, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in my name on the Student Loan Board Access to Higher Education Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2024 SB 398. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Student Loans Access to Higher Education Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2024, SB 398, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Student Loans Access to Higher Education Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2024, SB 396, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in my name on the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 378. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 378, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 378, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Asukwo Ekpeyong on the National Inland Waterways Authority Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 391. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Inland Waterways Authority Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 391, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Inland Waterways Authority Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 391, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Mikhail Adetokunbo Abiro on the Nigerian Insurance Reform Bill 2024, SB 393. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian Insurance Reform Bill 2024, SB 393, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Nigerian Insurance Reform Bill 2024, SB 393, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Samson Ekong on the Federal University of Technology, Ikot Abasi, Akwa Ibom State, Establishment Bill 2024, SB 395. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Technology, Ikot Abasi, Akwa Ibom State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 395, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal University of Technology, Ikot Abasi, Akwa Ibom State, Establishment Bill 2024, SB 395, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, before announcing the next order of the day, kindly please permit me to move pursuant to Order 8, Sub 3 of our standing rules that our sitting time be extended beyond 2 p.m. today to enable us to take all the items that we have on the order paper. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Okay, Mr. President, I rise to second the motion, ably moved by the Senate Leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that we do extend our sitting time beyond 2 p.m. to enable us to exhaust the items on the order paper. Those in support of the motion say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Ndubueze Patrick Chiwoba on the Federal University Okigwe Imo State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 396. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University Okigwe Imo State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 396, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal University Okigwe Imo State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 396, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I am applying that the first order of the day be stepped down for further consultation. And with that, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I will announce the second order of the day, which is the second reading of a bill standing in my name on the 2024 Federal Capital Territory FCT Appropriation Bill 2024, SB 397. And Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I hereby move a motion for the suspension of Rule 78(1) of our standing orders to, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do suspend its Rule 78(1) in order to read the bill for a second time. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I stand to second the motion that we suspend our relevant rules to enable the Senate leader read the bill for a second time. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. We do stand suspend our rules to enable this bill to be read a second time. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may now proceed.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to lead the debate on the general principles of the Federal Capital Territory Statutory Appropriation Bill 2024. The bill was read for the first time on Thursday, 14th March 2024. The 2024 FCT Statutory Appropriation Bill seeks to authorize the issue from the Federal Capital Territory Administration Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Capital Territory Administration account the total sum of 1,747,610,283 naira only, of which the sum of 140,915,003,856 naira only is for personnel costs, and the sum of 280,527,373,668 naira only is for overhead costs, while the balance of 726,338,232,759 naira only is for capital projects. For the service of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, for the financial year commencing from 1st January and ending on 31st December year 2024. The thrust of the Federal Capital Territory 2024 statutory budget is to ensure an effective and enduring service-oriented administration for the completion of ongoing projects and the provision of effective services to the residents of the Federal Capital Territory. An appraisal of 2023 FCT Statutory Appropriation Act. In the year 2023, the FCT administration received an appropriation of 641,247,685,794 naira only as its statutory appropriation. A total sum of 242,432,284,395 naira only accrued to the FCT as revenue from its various sources, showing 38% level of performance. The sum of 98,930,846,979 naira 22 kobo only was spent on personnel costs, representing 99%, and the sum of 60,305,199,796 naira only was expended on overhead costs, while the balance of 83,136,237,620 naira only was expended on capital projects, representing 20%. Highlights of the capital expenditure of FCT 2024 Statutory Appropriation Bill. The total proposed FCT 2024 Statutory Appropriation is 1,477,610,283 naira only, out of which the sum of 140,915,003,856 naira only is for personnel costs, and the sum of 280,527,373,668 naira only is for overhead costs, while the balance of 738,232,759 naira only is for capital projects for the service of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Mr. President, distinguished senators, emphasis has been placed on the completion of ongoing projects, particularly those with high impact on the provision of services and infrastructure to the residents of the Federal Capital Territory. However, a few new projects that are considered absolutely necessary have also been included in the budget proposal. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you all to give this bill an expeditious passage into law. I thank you.
The Deputy Senate President.
Madam Jibrin cannot not. Mr. President, I just want to commend the current administration of the FCT for bringing forward the earliest budget appropriation bill, maybe in 10 years, I don't know. Because the usual thing was to bring the appropriation bill maybe around November, sometime even December. Sometime even November or December. But this time around, it's been brought in March, the earliest in recent time. And I think it's in tandem with the current posture of this administration that the budget process should always start from from January and end in December. This is very good. It's a very good start for the FCT, and the FCT administration must be commended for this. That said, I think we should give the bill an expeditious passage because of the challenges before the FCT administration. The minister was here and he wrote out all what he intends to do in terms of the security of lives and properties within the FCT, in terms of infrastructure. In fact, he rolled out issues to do with the innovations he wants to bring to bear in the FCT in order to change the trend of how things are done here, so as to bring sanity and modernity into the affairs of the FCT. So I think without much ado, we should quickly go through this second reading in order to go to the next stage of the process of the bill, so that we give the necessary, approval in terms of passing this bill, so that it will be, the FCT will be, will have the necessary funds to execute the laudable plans it has for the people of FCT, and indeed the entire people within, even those not in FCT. But I think what the FCT administration intends to do will affect even other states, the neighboring states of Nasarawa, Kogi, and the rest, because it will bring about the improvement of lives and property, improvement of life, of the livelihood of the entire people of the FCT and its environs. I so submit, Mr. President.
The distinguished Senator Nwoko.
Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ned Nwoko, representing Delta North. My distinguished colleagues, just an observation before I make my contribution. I do not have a copy of the bill. I'm the senators next to me here do not have copies of the bill. So it will be, I think it's just coming over now. No, no, we need to have the bill so we would.
Yeah, you have the bill at the committee stage for you to go through.
So
It's going to the committee.
and I'll just speak generally as it is.
After the second reading, you have enough. You have to scrutinize it at the committee stage before you bring back to us.
Well, Mr. President, in which case, let me also lend my support, because we are all residents in the FCT. We need things to be done as quickly as possible. The minister was here yesterday and he told us of his plans for the year. I don't think there's any senator here who will oppose any budget proposals brought by the minister. Instead, we'll be asking for more, because as long as those things being proposed are going to be implemented, there will be enough security in FCT. There will be, FCT is bound to improve in quality and in style, especially with the environmental issues. I know that many areas have issues with refuse collections and disposal. So these are all part of the cost that we are hoping that the bill will contain at the long run. So I do support the bill as it is. Thank you.
This is Senator Binus Jaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Binus Jaro, Adamawa South. I rise to also lend my voice in support of the bill and the lead debate as presented by the leader of the Senate. I had wanted to make observation, just as my colleague, the last speaker, made. That is that we ought to have received a copy of this bill in accordance with our rule book, in particular Order 76. You know, I don't know what is difficult in photocopying the bill and distributing it to senators before we take this second reading. Notwithstanding, I know everybody that is living in Abuja now knows that we have a minister that is working, that is performing, and anything that he brings here will receive expeditious consideration. So having made those comments, I support this bill in total, and I ask that it be read the second time. Thank you.
Thank you. The clerk of the Senate, make sure before the close of the day, every senator has a copy of this bill. I don't think there's anybody who is in opposition to the bill. I believe that, so is it the wish of the Senate that this bill be read a second time? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Federal Capital Territory Administration's Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Capital Territory Administration account, the total sum of 1,147,780,610,283 naira only, of which the sum of 140,915,003,856 naira only is for personnel costs, and the sum of 280,527,373,668 naira only is for overhead costs, while the balance of 726,338,232,759 naira only is for capital projects for the service of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, for the financial year commencing from 1st January and ending on 31st December 2024. Second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Federal Capital Territory Administration Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Capital Territory Administration account, the total sum of 1,147,780,610,283 naira only, of which the sum of 3,850 naira only is for personnel costs, whereas the sum of 280,527,373,668 naira only is for overhead costs, while the balance of 726,238,759 naira only is for capital projects for the services of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, for the financial year commencing from 1st day of January and ending on the 31st of December 2024. This bill is now read for the second time. And the bill is hereby committed to the Committee on FCT and FCT Area Councils and Ancillary Matters to be brought back on the next legislative date. Yes, point of order.
Order 79. On the order of the second reading of a bill being read, a motion may be made that the bill be now read a second time, and a debate may arise covering the general merits and principles of the bill. I just want to emphasize this because of the objection that was initially raised by Senator Venus Yaro. Because I don't want people to begin to say we are processing an appropriation bill without the bill before us. In the second reading, we are only restricted, we are only to deal with the general principles, merits and demerits of the bill. We are not going to deep into it. So that will be dealt with in the later part of the processing. It's just the merits and demerits. Like they brought it early, we need to pass it early. It's good for the for FCT. It's going to really deal with insecurity, blah 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 blah. Just the principles. So it has not come to where we look at the nitty-gritty of the bill, so that nobody will say, we are, dealing with the bill, appropriation bill without seeing, or dealing with the figures inside. So it's not the stage where we look at the figures. It's just the debate about the merits and demerits. General principle. I still submit, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senate, Deputy Senate President, your point of order is sustained. But I just want to add that the totality of the content of the Senate Standing Orders 2023 as amended are embedded in the bottom of the Senate President. So well guided. It's clear. I had earlier mentioned that we just look at the rudiments, the general principles of the bill. And of course, like Senator Ned Nwoko pointed out, he would like to, when he goes into detail, to see provisions for sewage, waste disposal, security of the FCT, sanitation, and other things. And of course, we have now referred it to you. You can go ahead, even you can undertake your public hearing on the bill even on Monday, as you so wish, and then present it to us as soon as possible. But I must join the Deputy Senate President to commend the Minister of FCT, Nyesom Wike, CON, for bringing this bill for the first time in over 10 years, so early in the life of our administration. When I was in the 8th Senate, we used to see some of these bills coming from July August,
December,
September,
December.
sometimes in December. Sometimes in December. So seeing this coming now is very highly commendable. It shows that there is a resolve on the part of the minister to transform the FCT in line with the 8-point agenda of the renewed hope of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. So this Senate has noted its efforts, and we commend its efforts, and we hope that other parastatals and other agencies of government whose budgets are yet to be considered will follow suit and not try to bring their budgets in September or October, because this 10th Senate will not stand for it. So we commend the Minister of FCT, and we assure him and the entirety of the FCT area councils that we will treat this expeditiously to enable them hit the ground running. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the third order of the day is the second reading of a bill standing in my name on the Student Loan Board Access to Higher Education Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2024, SB 398. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do suspend its Rule 78.1 in order to read the bill for a second time. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the bill on student loans, access to higher education Act, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2024 be read a second time. I so second.
The Leader of the Senate. Yeah. Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So, Leader, you may move the lead debate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, it is my honor and privilege to lead the debate on the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Act, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2024. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the bill seeks to enhance the implementation of the higher education loan scheme by addressing challenges relating to the management structure of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, applicant eligibility requirements, loan purpose, funding sources, and disbursement. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the objectives of the bill are to, 1, provide loans to qualified Nigerians to pay tuition, fees, charges, and upkeep during their course of study in approved tertiary education institutions and vocational and skills acquisition institutions in Nigeria. 2, to build, operate, and maintain a diversified pool of funds to provide loans to qualified applicants and ensure access to higher education, vocational training, and skills acquisition. 3, ensure the recovery of all debts due to the fund from loans granted to qualified applicants, except where the board is of the opinion that a loanee should be exempted from repaying his or her loan by reason of 1, or A, death, B, considerations of hardship or equity, and or C, impossibility or undue difficulty or the expenses to be incurred in the recovery of the loan being far more than the amount sought to be recovered. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I hereby appeal to you all to give this bill expeditious passage because of its strategic importance to manpower development in line with the policy thrusts of the current administration. I thank you.
Well, it looks like Senator Omeh is the only one that... Senator Omeh, say something.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Umeh. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to support and commend this very important student loans bill. Access to funding for education of our youths is a very critical thing in Nigeria today. Most of us who are in this chamber will agree that most of the pressures we receive from our constituents, from the young people, center on their need to get proper education, but lack the funding. So most times we are overburdened by creating funds to support these young children. Like myself, I have been running education support programs, and I know the pressure I receive from young people. This is a very novel thing to do in Nigeria. It is done everywhere across the world, America and the UK. Students get access to loans to fund their education and research. And when they graduate, they start paying back when they are employed. If we do that in Nigeria and run it efficiently, we'll be contributing towards enhancing the skills and educational and human development of our young generation. So based on that, I support wholeheartedly that this bill should be given expeditious passage. The President has also introduced students' loan scheme in his program. So this will enable effective takeoff of this program by having a timely and expeditious passage. So I so support, Mr. President.
Thank you, distinguished Senator Omeh. There is really no way we can succeed in running a good scheme unless we have the proper act in place. So I think that's why we are, this repeal and reenactment is very essential. Distinguished Senator Ekong, just 1 minute, because I just want to know if there's anybody opposed to this. Ekong, are you opposed to the bill? If anybody is opposed to it, I'll be happy. Otherwise, we move straight.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Ekong Samson, Akwa Ibom South. I know that Mr. President is fully in support of this bill, given your support for education. In my state, we came up with free education for our youths. So naturally, I know that you are in support of this motion. Personally, I'm also very supportive of this motion, of this bill. The bill is very timely and it will help to address a number of concerns, especially amongst our youth. Access to funding is critical in driving the process of education in this country. I recall that a few weeks ago, I gave support to over 700 of my constituents. Many of them were students, and I can see the relief on their faces as they received such support. We need to encourage access to education in this country. We need to deepen skills, and one way to do this is through this sort of intervention. So on behalf of Akwa Ibom South, we are very much in love with education. I'm fully in support of this bill, and I'm inclined that we should speed up the process and give it the legal teeth that it deserves. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Anthony Ani.
My name is Senator Anthony Ani, representing the good people of Ebonyi State. I want to lend my voice to this bill because it's very timely and very apt. Firstly, it addresses most of my concerns. And some concerns are the applicant's eligibility requirements, very, very important. And the loan purpose, what is the loan meant for? The funding sources and disbursement. These are key areas that this bill has, we provide for. So I'm in full support, going by the provisions of the objectives. In particular, Objective 2, that says that it should build, operate, and maintain a diversified pool of funds to provide loans to qualified applicants. One of the problems Nigerians have been having over the years is lack of funds. And that is why you see some persons out of school, children out of school, adults out of school, simply because no funds. But this should provide a very good platform for people who ordinarily wouldn't have had the opportunity of gaining higher education to be opportune to do that. So I support this very strongly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being brief. Distinguished Senator Mbigi.
Thank you, Mr. President. In supporting this bill, it's good to outline some of the benefits of which a student's loan definitely will give to the beneficiary. Mr. President, let's start by thinking and talking about, wow, increased access to education. As a matter of fact, if we have a student loan, definitely most of our students will have access to education. Mr. President, it's also increased in the investment future of the youth. Most of the youths you see, because of earnings, their portfolio has been built. And because of this loan, it is like a source of earning. And that will also lead to what we call building of credit. In most advanced world, especially outside this country, credits are being built as a result of loan. Most of our students, if given such opportunities, you'll be surprised to see that their credit loan identifications will be given. Mr. President, there's also a situation where we look at flexibility in the rebuilding plan. With loan to our students, there will definitely be a flexibility in that area. Tax benefit. These students can obtain what we call a tax credit, a tax situation whereby they say, oh, you have made so payment in the time, and you also be identified. On the final note, it has also given, we also give the student an opportunity to build a career. Mr. President, on this submission, I think this bill should be supported wholeheartedly for it to have an accelerated passage for our students to benefit from the loan credit as is done in other parts of the world. Mr. President, I so submit.
Yes, distinguished Senator Bamoro.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Abamoro. I represent the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to support that this bill be read. The bill, as it has been stated, seeks to enhance the effective implementation of the loan scheme. And today, Mr. President, in the face of our circumstances, one of the reasons that we have so many out-of-school children and the rest of them today is because they don't have funds with which to go to school. Only yesterday, Mr. President, I got a text from one of my constituents asking for help because he has graduated from the secondary school, is of poor parents, and they cannot afford to send her to school. And I said, okay, you apply to any school, let me have the details, I'll pay your school fees, your parents will pay for your upkeep. And so, Mr. President, I think if we are able to pass this bill, or make it read the second time and the third time, and we pass it, it will make the implementation of the loan scheme that is meant to assist students and youth to go to school and access knowledge very easy. And so I support the bill to be read the second time, and then, of course, if possible, we'll be given accelerated third reading so that the obstacles on the way of our youth to access education will be removed and they'll have access to education. I so support, Mr. President.
Thank you. Just briefly, wait, 1 minute so that we can go straight.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Excellency. I remain Senator Peter Onyekachi Nwabonye, representing the good people of Ebonyi North Senatorial District. First, I want to commend the sponsor of this bill, which to me is a provision made for our children. And provision made for our children is a provision made for better tomorrow. And this bill is also in line with the promises of Mr. President in the course of his campaign to Nigerian students. And this, I can see, will automatically also end the idea of our students dropping out of school due to their inability to pay their fees. So I wholly support this bill to be given accelerated hearing. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you for being brief. This is Senator Asuko Ekpeyon.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much for the opportunity. Your Excellency, if I am anything today, it is because of an access or the privilege of access to quality education. I believe that after the security of lives and property by the federal government, which is one of the fundamental services that the federal government must provide, the most basic that federal government must do is to guarantee access to quality education. But Mr. President, quality education by its definition cannot be free, because for that to be provided, you need quality teachers. And so if there's anything this 10th Senate must do is to speedily pass this bill such that there will be financial intermediation with student loans being accessible and possible for students in our nation. I move and I pray that this bill receives a speedy and accelerated passage by this chamber. Thank you very much.
This is Senator Neda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Neda Emerson, representing Edo South Senatorial District. This is indeed a very good bill that I think will enjoy the support of all senators here, because we know what the kind of demands that we get from our constituents asking us to support them in this wise, to pay their school fees or to aid them in their upkeep. But having said that, I will also enjoy that, I hope that will come up during the proper discussion of it, that giving out this loan to students should attract a minimum interest rate. Some of us who had the benefit of having a part of education outside this country, my student loan interest rate was 1%, and it's for the life of the loan. And so we should be able to do something, put something in place that would not only guarantee the loan, but that the interest rate on this loan should be such that the students will not be so bogged down with the payment when they have graduated. And so I support this bill wholeheartedly, and I enjoin our colleagues as well to please support this bill, because it goes to help our youths who are all yearning for quality education in this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for being briefed. This is Senator Koboe.
Thank you, my very distinguished President. I am Kombowe Friday Benson, representing Bayelsa Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, if I do not rise to support this bill, I will be doing a disservice to myself and to my constituency that I stand to represent. For over some time now that I've been in politics, my desire and my commitment has always been on how to support the students that are vulnerable, that have no main person to support, and making up their student life and their career. And have done that quite since when I became a councillor and throughout my career in the House of Assembly. And coming up to this point, to see this bill being forwarded to the Senate is a welcomed development. I rise to say so because where I come from particularly needs more of this kind of assistance. And I know very well that Mr. President knows, and the reason why I'm saying so, because just last week, or the upper week, as you can understand, we went to the burial of my mother, and how detached we are from Nigeria. You can see that. And so we need this very specifically because if we do this, or if we had this, more of our boys who have veered into militancy would not have done so, because they don't have specific points where they can have access to funds. That is why a lot of them have gone into criminality. And so I wish that this bill should not just see the light of the day, but in implementing it, all aspects and all regions be considered adequately. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Olamileko.
Well, Mr. President, Adeola Olamileko, representing Ogun West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to join my colleague first in commending the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for coming out with this bold initiative and for the advancement of education in our country. Mr. President, a lot has been said about the advantages this bill that is currently before us tends to bring to the table in advancement of education in our country. And also to commend that reason why the launching of this program was stepped down was to have a legal framework through which they can operate effectively. Mr. President, my own observation is the writer of the bill, I hope they have taken into consideration all that is needed to be in that bill, because this is not the first time this is happening. In other parts of the world, while we have this student loan scheme, there are rules and procedures that must be followed to the latter, so that the beneficiary will not see it as a free gift, but we know that it's a loan to be paid in the future. So it's a welcome idea, a welcome development that will advance education in our country and will assist our youth access to quality education. So I'm in full support of the bill, and I recommend to my colleague that let's give it a speedy passage so that they can take off as soon as possible. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you for being brief. This is Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent Kwara North. Mr. President, my colleagues, this bill is one of the most important bills that I'm happy to support and see that it's passed quickly for two critical reasons. One, education, good quality education, Mr. President, is very, very expensive anywhere in the world. And the situation today in this country is such that education is not well funded because of paucity of funds and competing need for various other sectors. And universities, polytechnics, they are not able to charge students heavily to be able to meet up with the global standard. And most of us are so reluctant to support institutions to charge what they need to charge because of children of the less privileged. With this bill, where we are sure that no matter how underprivileged you are, no matter how poor you are, you can access funds to allow you to get the best education you have. Therefore, we will imagine that going forward, our institutions can be able to have enough funding to be able to compete globally. The second reason why I'm supporting this bill, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, is that this bill also makes provision for vocational skill acquisition. And that's a critical component that we must pay attention to in this country. We need skills, people who can do practical work, people who can solve problems, not people coming, from small African countries to come and solve basic problems like, building, tiling, and all of that. So, Mr. President, I'm happy with this bill, and I hope we pass it quickly so that we solve our educational challenges.
Thank you. Distinguished Deputy Senate President, I don't think there is anybody opposed to the bill, so we'll move very fast.
Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me. Well, my colleagues spoke very well in favor of the bill, of this bill. But what they felt, they didn't really factor into their debate is the fact that this bill is an executive bill. And the principal act, in the first place, was assented to by Mr. President. In fact, I think it was one of the first bills that he signed on assumption of office. And now he's bringing the principal act, he's bringing the act to be amended so that he wants it to get tailored in a fashion that it will very well allow the execution of his idea or of his thinking about the way to really help in giving access or in giving that opportunity to indigent students who really want to be educated but don't have the wherewithal to be educated. Give them the opportunity through financing, through funding of their education to get educated. Now, it's a demonstration of the fact that Mr. President really has the passion to advance the educational development of this country, to help to advance our tertiary education system. We need to commend him for that. He has done very well. No president in recent time that has shown the uncommon passion to help in advancing our tertiary education system like what the president is doing, as we speak. He came, he was not the originator of the bill, he saw the bill, he quickly signed it. And now say, okay, let's get it tailored to perfectly get into the arrangement he has for the advancement of higher education for this country. So, first of all, we need to commend Mr. President. And we need to give him all the necessary support, the encouragement, to make sure that this scheme succeeds. It is something that is done in other parts of the globe. If you go to America and have this kind of arrangement, well, I'm not surprised because he studied in America, and he has seen, what this kind of scheme has done for the educational advancement of the U.S. So he wants to bring that kind of arrangement to this country. Mr. President, he needs to be supported. We need to support our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to succeed in implementing this scheme. We commend him to continue on this trajectory until he takes our educational system to the next stage for the good of this country. As well, Mr. President.
Senator Mustafa Saliu.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Saliu Mustafa, representing Kwara Central. Mr. President, in supporting this bill, I would like to also toe the line of the Deputy Senate President, who just gave allusion to the reason and the facts of why this bill should be supported with accelerated passage. I will also want to commend the executive in the repayment scheme of the bill, whereby students who obtain this loan will start their repayment 2 years after their youth service, meaning they have a period of moratorium to do their repayment. Because if the bill had come with some stringent conditions, then we will find it difficult to achieve what the bill intends to. So I'm supporting the passage of this bill, that the executive on one hand have postponed the date of the launch of this program. But on our side here, I want us to quickly look at the nitty-gritty and whatever we need to do to give it an accelerated passage, so that by the time they are done with their own dotting of the I's and the T's, we will have been able to give them the necessary support. I so submit.
Distinguished Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished, respected colleagues, my name is Mohammed Sani Musa, Niger East Senatorial District. I stand to support this bill, this proposed bill, because of its importance, and that shows that Mr. President knows where the foundation of our problems are. If by the time we have this loan scheme become very effective, Nigerians will see why this scheme is more important than any other thing in putting a foundation for the growth of this country, especially when it has to do with tertiary institutions, where quite a number of research will be done and many innovations will be done. There's no better time to bring this than now. So my area of concern is that we must tighten all avenues that funding will be available. We shouldn't just tie it to the normal appropriation. We should find ways that funding will come to this, especially by either surcharging more of the profits of banks. If our commercial banks will be making such charges in every transaction, every of such charge, a certain percentage of that money should also go to the student loans fund. That is my submission. And once that is done, I think the sustainability of this will be sustained, will be attained. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, distinguished, thank you for your submission. Distinguished colleagues, this act that is now a bill before us seeking to repeal the Parents Act and reenact another one for 2024 by Mr. President is to clean up whatever lapses were found in the principal acts. And it is to the credit of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that he happens to be the president that signed these students' loans and access to higher education bill into an act of parliament. And he has asked us to repeal the earlier enactment and reenact another one that will be in line with his vision. This is to strengthen implementation, and this is also to ensure sustainability of this program. But it must not be lost on us that a lot of children have been lured into criminality, militancy, banditry, and other vices as a result of lack of support, maybe as a result of poverty or circumstances of birth or region. Like Senator Koboe was saying, if you went to his area, you'll see that it's just a small island in the Atlantic Ocean, cut off from land anywhere, and you access it for about 45 to 1 hour by boat. Children from there have no access to television or anything. And then of course, no money. And the only thing they come to see is fishing. And outside that, maybe pipeline vandalization and militancy. But with this kind of provision, I believe that members of the National Assembly, even the state houses or assemblies, will collate the would-be recipients from their various constituencies and forward them to the appropriate authority for assistance so that they can obtain quality education and come out tomorrow to be the professors and also the managers of the Nigerian economy and great contributors. So this is why we must commend this president. This must have happened in places like America, Spain, United Kingdom for over 200 years. I used to be, a lot of people, maybe Joel has just stepped out, otherwise I would have asked him. Many Nigerians have had the benefit of getting student loans in America and other places for educational purposes. They worked and paid back the loans, and they became what they are in society today. But in Nigeria, there was no such provision. Our children, once you are born into poverty, you have no help from government. You just have to, it's through the grace of God that somebody may pick you up by the roadside and you come to become something. So sometimes children are just born and they don't seem to have any hope except to become motor-packed out or to sell groundnut by the roadside, and at the end they grow up without being able to take care of their families and they are lured into criminality. So we must commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this bill that we are going to enact. And then I thank all of you for supporting it. There is nobody who is against it. So we will go straight into putting the question. Is it the will of the Senate that this bill be now read a second time? Those in support say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Clerk of Parliament.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Act 2023 and enact the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Bill 2024 to establish the Nigerian Education Loan Fund as a body corporate to receive, manage, and invest funds to provide loans to Nigerians for higher education, vocational training and skills acquisition, and for related matters 2024, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal the Students' Loans Access to Higher Education Act 2023 and enact the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Bill 2024 to establish the Nigerian Education Loan Fund as a body corporate to receive, manage, and invest funds to provide loans to Nigerians for higher education, vocational training, and skills acquisition, and for related matters dealt with 2024. Second reading taken. The bill is now referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund. To report back to us, to revert to the Senate on the next legislative date. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, let me move at this point that we step down all other items on the order paper. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that we step down all other matters on the order paper for today. I so second.
Having assessed the mood of the Senate, a motion has been moved and seconded by the Minority Leader that we do step down all other items on the order paper until the next legislative date. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Accordingly, this Senate is hereby adjourned to the 19th day of March 2024 at 11 a.m. prompt.